Okay, I'm Samuel Sivi, and I'm delighted to welcome you here and live on ActuView for this roundtable organized as part of the Young Actuary Initiative. I'm Samuel Sivi, so I'm head of Actuarial Studies and International Affairs at Institut des Actuaires, and with our colleague from Germany, I'm one of the pilots of the project Young Actuaries Initiative. It's an initiative that is being made to promote the actuarial profession and supporting young talents in France, Germany, and all over Europe, as we have a colleague from the United Kingdom today with us. It was launched officially last March. Even if age is a question of state of mind, you might, that's mostly what old people say, I'm far from being a young actuary. And we're lucky enough to welcome two talented young actuaries with us today who are going to talk to us about young actuaries for a sustainable world. First, we have Srinyani. Good afternoon. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. My name is Srinyani Ramakrishnan, and I'm a young actuary from the UK. And just would like to thank you for a very warm welcome and for the honour of being able to speak to you today. So just to share a little bit about my journey. So my passion for sustainability and the biodiversity sphere really started when I was quite young, I would say. I served as one of only 2 youth advisors in the UK for UNICEF and was also an ambassador for the Commonwealth, where we discussed building resilience through climate change and climate action. After earning a first-class degree in maths with actuarial science, I started my actuarial career. This was within life insurance and equity release mortgages for a large life insurer. I then transitioned towards life actuarial consulting, which I work in currently. I work for Forvis Mazars in London, where I have been working with Solvency II, IFRS, UK GAAP, and also the audit of major large life insurers. So that's just a little bit about myself, and thank you once again for having me. Looking forward to today.
And we have Antoine Raval.
Okay, and thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Antoine Raval. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at INRAE, which is a center in agriculture and environment, and I work inside a research chair funded by 2 reinsurance companies, Foundation Score and CSR. So I'm still connected to the insurance sector. And before that, I was a teaching coordinator at NCA, and before that, I did my PhD in Sorbonne University, and in collaboration with the French Federation of Insurance. And so for me, sustainability is part of my research because I work in a natural disaster management, and I try to estimate the cost of natural risk and how we can reduce that cost. First, how that cost is, I try to estimate the cost, so how the cost is made, and then I try to say what can we do to have cost less important for natural disaster. And yes.
Thank you. So to start with our subject, Srinyani, could you tell us how you, as a young actuary, what are you doing to make this world more sustainable?
Definitely. So I'm thrilled to share this. So I'm thrilled to share the work that we as actuaries and myself are doing to address some of the pressing challenges that we face today. So I am a member of the IFOA board on sustainability, and in this role I lead the Sustainable Development Goals portfolio as a part of the board, and the board is comprised of 6 specific areas. So if I maybe show one of the... So as noted on the screen, the IFOA Sustainability Board is made up of 6 different areas. So we have communities, research, sustainable development goals, policy and regulation, events, and education. So as part of the board, I'm involved with liaising with other senior members on the board in order to drive sustainability within the actuarial field and profession. And we also seek to influence regulators and the UK government on key and pressing issues within the sustainability field and the sustainability area. So the Sustainability Board is a senior member-led committee comprising of volunteer actuaries from various practice areas. And our mission is to advise the IFOA and various bodies on sustainability issues, particularly climate-related risks. But our work extends far beyond the profession as well. So we really want to ensure that sustainability remains a priority in the world of finance, risk management, and policy making as well. So it's a great role to do with lots of different risk aspects. So just to give you a bit of flavour of what we do on the Sustainability Board, we advise governments and energy providers, firstly on long-term energy forecasts to ensure a sustainable balance of supply and demand. We are also involved with business risks, so we help evaluate the risks posed to businesses by climate change and evolving regulations. And in terms of carbon capture and storage, we have estimated the potential...
Closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So in terms of carbon capture and storage, we have estimated the potential insurance costs for these emerging technologies and global transition trends as well. And in terms of fossil fuel reserves, our board have contributed to some valuation of fossil fuel reserves, factoring in environmental policies and global transition trends. So that's just to give you a bit of a flavour in terms of what our board is involved with. Another exciting initiative that I'm privileged to lead is the Sustainability Early Careers Board, established by our board. And this Early Careers Board harnesses the voices of early career actuaries to provide really a fresh perspective and ideas to bridge those gaps between younger actuaries and senior actuaries as well. So we really hope to raise awareness and really promote sustainability as a viable field that you can go into as a profession. And we also want to offer feedback on the work that the main IFOA board do. And we also want to drive fresh and new ideas and just provide a different perspective as well. So those are the different things I've been fortunate to be involved with.
Thank you. Antoine?
Yes, so for Institut des Actuaires, it's going to be a bit quicker maybe. But yes, for the Institute, the actuarial sustainability is also a very key main issue. As the President just reminded us, there is several working group working on those issues. There is a committee that steer all those initiatives. The main issues are P&C claim, health, asset regulatory, and maybe I forgot one, I don't know. But yeah, for all the working group inside the Institut des Actuaires, sustainability is important. There is also an annual report every year that tackles those issues, and the Institute is also a founding member of the Parc Common Research, alongside with Institut Louis Bachelier, European Climate Foundation, les Ponts et Chaussées, ADEME, and French Treasury. And I think I forgot none.
I think that's it.
I think that's it also. And so this is a research program designed to make available data and ideas and research around respecting the Paris Agreement and how to make sustainable finance, how to do applied research to make sustainable finance possible. And I think, yeah, of course, today, which is 100% durabilité also. So this is a good example of how the Institut des Actuaires can be involved in sustainability. And I don't know if we have a lot of public relation towards it, but
yeah, we had last year our first conference with
yes,
SCPR, which is a French controller, and it was a common conference on sustainability.
Yes, and I think
yeah, and I think we can lead to what the IFOA, which has been very active and verbal about durability, sustainability, and taking strong public positions. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Absolutely, thank you so much. So maybe to start off with that question, maybe if I can give a bit of an overview on the state of the UK sustainability climate, and then potentially delve into where the IFOA fits in. So if I maybe start with that. So the UK has committed to being the world's first net zero aligned financial centre, and this is our ambition. And however, this bold goal does involve and need financial institutions to move towards creating mandatory transition plans, outlining how those organisations are going to decarbonise their operations in alignment with our country's legally binding net zero targets. So just to give a bit of an overview, we've got the UK net zero ambition in the middle, and how the UK plans to tackle this is through sort of incorporating the UK sustainability disclosure requirements, which is one aspect of that aim for net zero. And also the UK's Climate Change Committee estimates that the country needs an additional £50 billion of investment per year between 2030 all the way up to 2050 to support this transition to net zero. And the government has published a green finance strategy that outlines how it's going to try and do this. So to oversee this, the government has published a established a transition plan task force. The Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, TCFD, has played a critical role in this transition, and actually the UK was the first country to mandate TCFD-aligned reporting that enables firms to sort of publish clear plans in terms of how they're going to navigate towards a low-carbon economy. In addition, the various disclosures like TNFD is also being developed, which is called Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures. And this is really because, if we think about it, a staggering half of the world's global GDP depends on nature. So we really need to find a way to disclose our nature-related risks. The Bank of England has also made great strides with its climate transition plan, which outlines how it's going to achieve net zero in its physical operations by 2040. And lastly, we have Solvency UK, which is set to be implemented end of December 2024. And this is set to replace Solvency II following the UK's exit from the EU. And actually the first set of reforms is on the risk margin, which is reportedly going to release 13 billion of capital reserves for major insurers. So what Solvency UK aims to do is really bring efficiencies for UK insurers and really simplifying that reporting process. So the IFOA board is at the forefront of driving sustainability within the profession. And as mentioned, there are 6 sort of key areas that sit within the board. And just to hone in on the various research side, if we hone in on research, there are essentially discussions and research papers published in various sources, such as the British Actuarial Journal, on net zero and the implications for investment portfolios. And this really delves into what net zero means for investment portfolios and the mechanisms to try and achieve it. We also have climate assumptions and scenario modelling that seeks to highlight the best practices in scenario modelling. We also have demographics, so mortality and morbidity aims to analyse sort of the impact of climate-related perils on specifically mortality and morbidity trends. We have climate reporting and disclosures that provides guidance on TCFD, and also carbon pricing, which is quite an interesting one, analysing carbon markets and pricing the mechanisms in the journey to becoming a net zero sort of country and economy. And biodiversity and natural capital aims to track and promote the implementation of this within various companies and portfolios.
Thank you. Antoine, how do you prepare tomorrow's young actuaries for the multiple challenges of climate change, and what's being done for education, actual education in France?
Yes, so for education, maybe this is more my subject. In education, in France, to become an actuary, you have to validate certain course. We have a course syllabus that depends on the school, but it's basically the same for the school. And on those syllabus, we have a lot of courses. We don't have really a courses on sustainability yet, maybe one day we'll have that. But we have very good technical courses that form, I think, actuaries to tackle some challenge of that climate change. My main area of expertise is modelization of natural disaster, and I think that the core syllabus of the school that allow you to become an actuary in France really train you in a good way to have a good technical background to model all kind of risk, and climate risk is in part of that. We have courses on extreme value theory. We have courses on non-life insurance, and I think those courses really give a good background, but we can go further, of course, and maybe we'll have more courses on what you said about how we price carbon, how we do good prices on climate change, and maybe one day we will have some courses also on climate, so that actuaries have a good background of those issues too. But I think that today we have, to sum up, we have a good basis for actuary, and we can go further, but it's already, I think, good. And this show in the end of a study dissertation that the student present at the end of the study. We see that a lot of the recent end of study dissertation actually tackle those issues. We have a lot of dissertation about modeling risk, but also about asset, as you explained, in life insurance. And I think that more and more young people are more trained to do it, and they want to do it more also.
Yeah, and just to complete as well, as Institut des Actuaires, we had a thought about changing the core syllabus to add more of the sustainability issues. But the issue there is that the core syllabus is already huge, and the time is limited to study. And yeah, it's very, very good to think about things we could add, but then you need to take off stuff, and a lot of the basics mathematics you need to have in order to be able to do your job. So that's one big issue we have. But yeah, a lot of the memoirs we receive now are somewhere or another linked to sustainability. What is being done by IFOA on this subject?
Yes, definitely. So in order to sort of embed sustainability within the curricula, there are numerous different steps taken in order to achieve this. So firstly, if I may be able to possibly explain one headline research report that the IFOA have launched. This is called the IFOA's Climate Scorpion, the sting is in the tail. And this headline research piece, if I may explain a little bit about this, links to our research portfolio. And actually, various portfolios of the board are involved deeply in how we embed sustainability within our exams and the way that we prepare for the exams too. So the IFOA's Climate Scorpion considers risks in modelling and projections, and the report introduces planetary solvency, which essentially likens the Earth's sort of ecosystem to financial solvency. So this report actually predicts a likely overshoot of the 1.5 degree global temperature threshold by 2030. And actually, as can be shown in this graph actually illustrates that historical 1 in 100 events are now becoming 1 in 10 year events due to climate change. So the tail of the risk at the moment as we kind of move forward is sort of shifting, and it's fattening and sort of flattening. That shows that risk models that we're using right now desperately need recalibration to incorporate the shifting probabilities, emphasizing that sort of this type of approach is needed in pricing and reserving. And this is really groundbreaking, because if we think about it, risk models are calibrated to sort of the blue curve at the moment, but what we need to think about is how they can be recalibrated to the sort of yellow curve, showing how, showing these sort of pertinent risks and how actuaries should focus more on the tail risks. And this really needs to be communicated through all levels of an organisation, not just the senior actuaries, but we all need to have an understanding of this. So going back to the sort of syllabus and the curricula, the IFOA really wants to upskill and is in the process of upskilling actuaries within sustainability fields. At the moment in the UK, there are 13 actuarial exams that you would need to sit, and you would need to have a 36-month work experience requirement to be essentially qualified as an actuary. And the steps being taken at the moment to integrate sustainability is really within each of these core examinations. So for example, for the stats related examinations, there's more climate related case studies, and also for the business related exams as well. There's more sort of sustainability focused business risks that are sort of raised in particular, because it's very hard as a young actuary to sort of know where to start in sustainability and how it really links to our work. So the IFOA is very actively making sure that this is embedded, and also not only in the exams, but also in the competency framework and the professional softer skills that you would need as an actuary as well. So there are various climate-related courses that the IFOA offers to really enhance that competency side of things as well.
So you could say that even though the two systems are quite different in the way they're set up, in the end the way to approach it are quite similar. Trying to input some sustainability, little touches of sustainability during all the inside every aspects.
Definitely.
Okay. Is there any questions from the room here? No, it's a small room, so. Antoine. You want to tell us? You did not really answer the first question, saying what as a young actuary what you were doing for sustainability in your work. So maybe you should answer that question now.
Yes, maybe I can develop a little bit that. So as I said, I'm doing research in natural disaster. So right now I'm trying to understand the dynamic of extreme events, and to do that I actually use tools that we have good knowledge in actuarial science, which is a point process. And so I tried, with my supervisor and the team working with me, we are trying to understand how extreme events are made and how we can predict it better to give better estimation. What I can add is maybe, so this is the beginning of my postdoc, so I don't have a lot to say, but maybe on my PhD I've done much more things I can talk about. So in my PhD, it was an individual PhD, so I had the opportunity to work in a company, actually the French Federation of Insurance, and in the same time to be related to a public laboratory of research. So I could apply the model developed by supervisor in the public work to private data. And I think this is something a young actuary can do. Not always on research, because I don't think everybody wants to do a PhD, and it's okay because there is not enough place for everybody. But maybe actually can use their knowledge and use their understanding of science to apply those issues to their real data, and if they can publish or at least go on in conference or go on in events by the Institute, and kind of what we are doing today actually, share that knowledge. I think this is something that it's really good. Something maybe younger generation do more than older generation is to have an open code when you put your code on a GitHub, for example, and on a Git. This is something that is very good because you share the knowledge, you share your expertise on a subject, and this is something that if you do that on a subject, for example, during your end of study dissertation, if you do code and if the company won't allow you to do it, if you put it on a Git, then the people coming after you that will do dissertation on the same subject could use that to do their subject, and together we'll have more knowledge. So this is not on sustainability inclusively, it's really broader, but for sustainability I think it's really important because as we said, and I think as we all know, it's a really important subject.
Thank you. Actually, this morning I was on another roundtable, and I've got a question we haven't prepared, so which is always better. We are talking about models, and they were important for actuaries. But I think climate change makes us think about the models, and you know, every model is wrong. But what's your view as a young actuary about models? And we haven't prepared that, so that's a good one. Go on.
So the question is sort of how can young actuaries sort of analyse?
What's your view as a young actuary about models and the limits of models, and in the sense of climate change, for instance? What do you think about them?
Definitely. So I think it's a very interesting question. I think in terms of models, I think firstly, a model is just a model at the end of the day. It's always going to be open to interpretation. It's always going to be sort of, there are always limitations with models. You can't get something that's going to be completely perfect in order to model the future or project the liabilities as accurately as we can when it comes to sustainability and climate change risks. So there's always questions open to interpretation in terms of model risk in particular. But I think the way that young actuaries can really lean into this conversation and sort of contribute is really understanding that climate-related risks can have so many knock-on impacts and can have so many contributions to not just one linear sort of pathway like climate risk, but they can really impact the whole, people, the economy, and so many different lines that can indirectly impact various businesses in different ways as well. So I think early career sort of actuaries really have the chance to lean into all of their life experiences and really look at climate risk from I would say, humanitarian perspective rather than just a financial perspective. So there's one unique diagram that really explains all these interlinkages. And if we look at this particular diagram, this really shows how wide-reaching climate risk is, and it can't really be constrained all in one in a perfect model. It's always going to have its limitations. So if we kind of go through this sort of in detail from the Actuaries Climate Scorpion report, this really demonstrates how climate change and biodiversity loss are core drivers for such a wide array of risks. So climate change, as we can see, increases the background hazards such as zoonotic diseases, which what we've experienced with the COVID-19 pandemic, and these risks also strain healthcare systems, and that in turn reduces labour productivity, creating significant social and economic pressures. And also, if we think about the cascading of risks, this links to physical risks. So, for example, water, food, and energy security, they're also sort of compromised as well, leading to the breadbasket failures that we see, global supply chain disruptions that happen that really make the essential commodities so scarce. And because of this really highlights that much of the world's infrastructure that we see at the moment, it's based on historical climates, not really the future climates that we're expecting. And because of that, we see sort of the most vulnerable in society really affected through heightened political instability and heightened conflict as well. So this really shows that as early career actuaries, if we kind of look beyond the models and really take a bit of a personal humanitarian touch to it, we can really be able to assess even more risks than the model is able to tell us and inform us. So I think we are even more powerful than the models, and I think we would need to understand that, more in the future.
Thank you. And now to the academic actuary. What do you think about model?
So of course I'm more biased, but I think the end of the situation is all models are wrong, but some are useful, and so this is true, and I think we have to keep in mind what Sriani said, and if I can add, yes, the young actuaries, what we are lucky is that we have more data, I think, that a senior actuary to test our model. It's very important to understand what a model is and what, as Sriani says, take a broader look, and we can test it. If I go back again to the example of natural disaster, we have a lot. It's a physical risk, and it's in the name. It's physical, so you can test it. It's something that has it's real, so you can. There is some database that allow you to test your model. So it's really important to challenge those models, and I think that young actuaries, we are lucky enough to have more data than the one before us. So we can use that. We can use methodological data. We can use data on the occurrence of a risk. And so I think this is something we can go beyond the model with data, and this is something really important. And I think this is something at the heart of our job. And on the academic side, yes, of course, modeling is important and is part of our job. But I think even in the academia, we understand that model is just a model, and we can go further. And
thank you. I have another question actually about the social responsibility of the actuary. As actuaries, we've got a responsibility to do a pricing which is fair, unbiased, and blah blah blah. What do you think about it? What's your view about it as a young actuary, and how do you think we can contribute to that? You can contribute to that. I'm an old one, so just listening now.
Definitely. I think that maybe if the question can be repeated once more.
Yeah, the question is about the social responsibility, and the fact that pricing has to be unbiased, and how as a young actuary you embrace this and you feel. But for everyone, we haven't prepared all those questions, so that's. Thank you very much, Yanni, but I'm enjoying myself now. So.
Definitely. I am as well. I think it's so exciting. I'm so grateful and excited to be part of this debate. I think it's a really great question. And I think as actuaries, we have an obligation, first and foremost, to the public and to the customer. And we need to make sure that we are acting in the best ethical interests for the people that we serve. So I think in terms of making pricing decisions and sort of making even decisions to do with if we model climate risks, I think these all need to come from a purely ethical standpoint. We need to, as Antoine said, make sure that we're testing all of our frameworks and our models and making sure that they're free from any bias that could filtrate into the model itself. And we also need to make sure that, so in the UK, we have the Actuaries Code, and I'm sure in France you would have the code that you would adhere to as well. And I think this is really powerful in order to not only act as a guide in our professional work, but also implement it in in our personal lives as well. So making sure that we're acting with integrity when we're doing tests, making sure that we've got the correct competence in order to complete the work, making sure that we're doing the work with care and with a quality and the quality of thought put behind that work as well. So I think all those in conjunction is what makes a good actuary. But first and foremost, making sure that we are acting with integrity and with ethics when we are serving the public.
Thank you. Antoine, what's your view on this?
Yes, thank you. I'm a bit more torn apart because I think it was this morning we talked about solidarity and mutualization, and so maybe in natural disaster we don't need to model risk that well, because if we model risk too well, then we will lose the solidarity side and the mutualization side. And for those risks, solidarity is important, but that doesn't mean that actuaries should hide that. They shouldn't, and we should have a good evaluation of the risk, but that doesn't mean that if we have a good evaluation of the risk, that the client should pay their fair price. And I think this is the question, what is the fair price? And in natural disaster, maybe the fair price is not your real price. But
and maybe the solution is a better prevention as well.
Exactly.
Which is mostly, and something, what we said this morning, that the UK is probably much better at it because it's a much more liberal market. So then prevention is put upon, whereas in France, since the state is helping much more, prevention is a bit less advanced.
Yes, but actually we can do prevention with data, and we can use the data made by insurance company and especially expert insurance company to do better prevention of risk. And this is something that maybe we don't do enough. And on which actuaries would be actually a good fit, because we know how to analyze data. You who work in the company have the data, so maybe you could share those data to have a better prevention, to better understand, for instance, how the risk affect the houses. This is why I did my PhD. And yeah, it could lead to better prevention, and this would be really good in natural disaster, and maybe.
Thank you. I have another question about gas. Gas emission. You're more on the investment side of the business. What young actuaries and actuaries in general can do, to reduce gas emission in general?
In general, I think there's various different initiatives that young actuaries and young people can be a part of to reduce this. I think like companies sort of think about the double materiality that they sort of have. Firstly, if we're kind of thinking about from a company perspective, they think about how much emissions they give out, how much they are impacting the environment, but also how sort of the climate affects their balance sheets as well. So I think if we kind of want to really make great advances in our personal lives as early actuaries, in order to kind of make sure that we're contributing to sustainability and coming at it from this ethical standpoint, I think really making sure that we're sort of really aware of our own sort of everyday lives, how we contribute to the environment, and really make conscious steps in order to make sure that we're making sustainability sort of a key in our households.
Thank you, Antoine.
Yes, so maybe I can again point you to what has been said this morning about the claim management, because there is a big issue on the fact that when you rebuild a house, you emit some CO2. And this is something that we don't measure at all. And this is something I think that maybe we didn't realize before. Now we kind of realize it, but we don't know how much. And I know, for example, in France, we have a problem with the shrinking and swelling of clay. And for a long time, the most basic solution to repair a house is impacted by the drought was to rebuild the foundation of the house. And we put, I don't have the word in English, but micropieux, which is you put a foundation deeper into the soil. And this is something that is actually emit a lot, because you built a house twice the first time, and then 20 years later, you read the foundation, and this is something that will emit, and there is all other solutions that could prevent that. And I think the first step is to realize that, and the second step would be to measure really thoroughly how much it is emits, and then when we have that number, we can do first prevention, and then we can ask ourselves, is it really necessary to build a house twice? And is it really good? And this is something that a young actuary can do, because it's an open subject. As I said, I don't think there is any work on that, so maybe this is something that you could investigate, or maybe we could investigate.
Thank you. If there's no more question, is there any question in the room? If not, I think I'm gonna finish this roundtable. Thank you very much, Trignani, for joining us from London, and hopefully next one will be in London, and we'll send some French actuaries there. And Antoine, thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you.